Had a great 4 for 4 winners on patterns from yesterday. Oh, I hate you. I hate you. You know why? I had two very painful trades or trade/mistrades yesterday. I had the Aussie Canada one we took a look at during the live room, which reversed before getting filled. So watched it go down and make everyone else money except for myself. And then the euro yen trade that we were talking about in the live room. A single pip before profit targets before reversing. Now in reality it's probably like 3 pips because of the spread, but a single pip before where my order was at before reversing. Yeah, it stinks. It stinks. Yeah. But I tell you what, and I put a post on Twitter. I'm probably going to put one on Instagram about it later. It's a good lesson. I know I'm going to get hammered for it because I always do. But I always like sharing opportunities like that where it's like, I got stopped out for break even. Yeah, so I didn't lose any money on it. That's the management side. But I love putting posts like that where it's like, hey guys, had a trade that was like a single pip or a few pips away from being stopped out, and now I'm out for break even. And what do you think the first thing that your casual trader will say, or your uninformed trader will say? Why didn't you take profits? Yeah, you should have got out. And it's like, oh, of course you hindsight genius. Of course you hindsight genius. Of course I should have gotten out. But the reality is, it's we're in a, I think in general, more so these days, we're in more of I think we're programmed to kind of want this instant gratification. And I say more in these days because with technology is a beautiful thing. It also has the ability to get us whatever we want whenever we want it. I mean, here's a great example, right? I use Amazon Prime a lot. I should check. I think my credit cards do. 1-day shipping. Right? 1-day shipping. I have a need, I get it right away. You don't even have to go to supermarkets anymore, guys, right? There are people that will go food shopping for you and deliver it to you. Right? Technology has caught up so much or has developed so much that we can basically have whatever we want right away. Right? There's no more waiting. I remember, and I'm going to make myself sound old. I'm sure some of you guys have other stories. I remember growing up, I used to order CDs from like a magazine or something from a magazine. I had to wait like 2 weeks to get it. You had to wait like 2 weeks. Didn't seem like much because that was the norm. But like now, I would never wait 2 weeks to get anything. That's ridiculous. But we carry that same thing over to life. We want instant gratification. Right? If we're in school, we want our tests and our quizzes graded right away. We want results right away. So when people see posts like that, they're like, well, why didn't you take profit? Why didn't you do the thing that's going to give you short-term pleasure? Right? And the answer is, right, because I don't value short-term pleasure. Or maybe I should phrase it this way. I don't value short-term pleasure at the expense of long-term pain, right? Because that's what's going to cost me. If I want short-term pleasure, it's typically going to cost me long-term pain. However, if I sacrifice short-term pleasure for the right reasons, or short-term pleasure, it can give me long-term pleasure. And I say that because we're trying to develop habits, right? And developing habits doesn't happen right away. Have any of you guys ever had to develop a new habit or a new routine or break an old habit? Have you guys ever been through that? It's not easy. It's not easy. It's 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, 3 steps right. It's tough. It's very, 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 very hard. And what we're doing here in trading is we're developing that. We're developing a different mindset, right? We're developing a mindset that's based on probabilities, that's based on thinking long-term and not short term. We even talked about this yesterday about the difference between stress and distress, right? So to be a consistently profitable trader, to switch your mindset, you have to fully immerse yourself in the idea that I need to develop long-term good habits. And I must value developing long-term good habits at the expense of maybe sacrificing some short-term pleasure. And that's what we talk about, process over outcome, right? I didn't make any money on the trade. I didn't lose any money, and that's because of active trade management, but I didn't make any money on the trade. So you can say that is a negative. You can say that it's painful, right? Technically, it's not, because I never had any money. You don't technically have money until you take it out. So I don't look at it as missing money, because you can't miss something you never had. But many will look at it as missing out on profit, because you could have had it if I, stopped myself out. But I don't care about the money. Or rather, I should say this, I don't care about that short-term money from that individual result. I care about the consistent long-term money that will come as a result of my consistent correct actions. And that comes from trusting the process, following the plan, being disciplined. So when I look at a trading situation like that, especially back in the day when I was still trying to kind of develop this mindset, I would tap myself in the back and say, you know what, Akil, good job. Because you were disciplined. It didn't work on this one, but bigger picture, it will work, right? You guys remember that story I told you about New Zealand dollar? My best trade, the one that kind of switched my mindset? Has anyone not heard that story? 600 pip trade? You remember what I said most of the people in the live trading room I was with did during that trade? This is when I was a student. Yep, with Jason Stapleton, my trading coach. Yeah. More than half of the class took their targets off before the weekend. Everyone was happy about 50 pips. Only a handful of us stuck with it. We were rewarded with 600 pips. That changed my mind, because it was the first time I actually was disciplined. And fortunately, it paid off. So it's always process over outcome. It's always the big picture. But it's a tough mindset to grasp, but it's the right mindset. And I think it's the right mindset in all forms of life, not just trading, but in general. I'm a big believer in if you do the right things for the right reasons, for the right amount of time, you will be successful. And that's even in life. So it's tough, but it's doable. And people may ask, well, Akil, and here's another thing I'll get, you look at this situation, it's like, well, what's the big deal? You took targets off, a pip early. What's the big deal? It's one pip. We've even had conversations here before in a live room where we've adjusted targets because, we can put them at a safer level. Now, the thing is, we're adjusting targets beforehand, right? We're adjusting targets when we're looking at target projections. We're not in the middle of a trade and saying, oh, let me move targets up. No, we're saying, well, I could have targets here, or I could be a safer level 5 pips ahead. Let's put them at the safer level. Safer level. That's predetermined. And as Ale mentioned, what happens is, right, well, 1 pip turns into what? 2 pips? 2 pips early? 2 pips turns into 5 pips? Right? Another story, because I got a lot of them. My best friend, my trading partner at the time, who was a genius at developing strategy, had all types of issues with trading psychology, doing pretty good in investing now, longer term investing. Partially because he doesn't have the time to actively stare at the chart, so he can't kind of psych himself out. So I think he kind of found his niche, but he would have awesome strategies, but then he'd have some trades that would miss by 5 pips, and he'd get frustrated. So he'd move his target next time 5 pips closer. And then, of course, eventually, what do you think would happen? At some point, the market would do what? Yep. It would miss those entries or those targets by 5 pips. So he'd move them 5 pips closer. And before you know it, no lie, before you know it, he was taking targets off basically at the 50% level of what it was originally supposed to take it at. So he was taking targets off halfway to where he was supposed to. Now, breaking news, No matter how you trade, no matter what you do, no matter how much you front run, there's always going to be a moment where price just misses whatever your level is at. That's just always going to happen. There's no avoiding it. Now, again, it may happen more than less if you're doing like a unsmart target place, but there's always going to be a level. But he ended up taking his profits 50% earlier. And as Greg just mentioned, yep, the stops didn't change. Why would the stops change? So he was all excited about this win percentage, but his wins were no longer covering for his losses. And I remember talking to him at the end of the year, or at the end of the month. Like, dude, how's your system going? We would have kind of hold each other accountable. How's your system going? He's like, yeah, I made like 400 pips for the month. I'm like, dude, you're killing it. But he was all sad. I'm like, why are you sad, man? 400 pips, that's crazy. He's like, yeah, I left another 500 on the table. What? So what should have been a 900 pip month for him was a 400 pip month for him. Then the next month, he took some losses. His wins from the previous month didn't cover his losses because he sabotaged himself, and he was back at break even or a little bit in the red. Never developed that good habit. It was about instant gratification, the individual trade. We're not worried about the individual trade. We're worried about the longer term result. So I love sharing messages like that. It's painful, it hurts, but it's the reality, and it's something that a lot of people are going through and don't know how to handle. But it does suck. Short term. It'll be better.